Welcome to the Transition Drill Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Pantiani. I appreciate you taking the time to watch, so let's get into this. You do pizzas now. Hal does pizzas.
Yep.
Is it the artist side of you that just tracks from making wine into making pizza?
I've always liked to cook, I guess. So my old Navy buddy, Kevin Childry, rest in peace, he was killed 5 years ago, but I went to his house in San Diego and he had a pizza oven in his backyard. And I was like, oh my God, I got to have one of those. Because the pizza was fantastic, the super high heat. And maybe that
so
artisan piece.
Were you cooking before you started making wine, or was it all kind of in conjunction with each other?
Conjunction. I mean, my wife and I have always been in the kitchen, like to try new recipes and get fancy with this, that, and the other, so always fun.
Got it.
Enjoy it, yeah. So
let's go backwards a little bit. Where'd you grow up?
So really, most of my childhood was spent up north of Seattle and Everett, Linwood, Edmonds, up in Washington State. Actually born here, though. Spent a couple years here in Paso area, and then parents moved out. Actually went to Redondo Beach for a few years and then north to Seattle. So that's what I remember, though, is Everett, in that area.
What caused your family to move so much?
Oh, they just like to move.
Oh.
My dad just liked going from one place to the next, so they just packed up every 2 years, even up there in Washington. We lived all over the place. Yeah, it was crazy.
Just when you're getting settled, say, hey, pack your stuff, we're moving again.
We're moving again, yep, exactly.
So what was your connection to Paso?
Grandparents were here, so both sides, Tackitt side and my mom's side were the Thomases, and which was the property here where the winery is. And then Mark Tackitt was Paso police for, I think, like 28 years. So he retired in the 70s, I believe, if I remember right.
Any other law enforcement or military in your family?
Yeah, uncles, Army, Navy. Pa was the only police officer that I can remember. But yeah.
Did you know military was going to be your path early on?
No, not a clue. Yeah. Just kind of going down a path up there in the Seattle area, and Boeing was hiring big time, in the late 70s, and saw, I was making like $2.25 an hour, and they were paying jet mechanics $15 an hour, that was like huge money back then. I was like, well, I'm going to go. And a buddy's like, hey, my brother's in the Navy. Why don't we look at going to the Navy? So we went down, talked to a recruiter, but I didn't get jet mechanic school, so it didn't work out. Ended up in anti-sub warfare and actually chasing Submarine.
So initially going in, it was just a stopgap to learn aircraft mechanics, so you could come back out and go.
Exactly. Yeah, get a skill set and go work for Boeing. But I think it was 84 when Boeing was, firing left and right. And I think that billboard was still in Seattle. Last person to leave Seattle, turn out the lights, was still up there. So yeah, it seemed like a good point. And then talked to another guy that was hiring divers down in Louisiana. It's like, hey, you go to dive school, you got a job when you get out. So it's like, all right. So a bunch of buddies were going to EOD school. And I said, well, do they dive? And he's like, yeah. I was like, all right, let's go. So we ended up in EOD school in 1984.
Now, is EOD school not hard hat diving, or is that?
We did back then. You were hard hat. You went through second class dive school, Panama City. So you learned rope diving, hard hat diving. Which I never used again after school. Which all has transitioned now. It's all just scuba now and closed circuit scuba. So they have a specific training for the EOD diver in school now. So,
and your job was primarily disposing of?
Yeah, getting rid of leftovers, remnants of war, and then a lot of range clearance, because there's practice ranges all over the United States. And not everything goes off, it's at the old 10% dud rate. So there's always a bomb laying somewhere or, Projo from a ship laying somewhere that's got to be getting rid of. So we go out and take care of it.
And how many total years did you do in the military?
Almost 28, really close, just over 27 and a half years total.
Do you get to a point today where you basically don't want to hear something explode anymore?
No. No. Well, my bladder press blew up a couple weeks ago, and I just stood there and looked at it and everybody's like, you didn't even flinch. I was like, why? Just sat there going, oh crap, that's going to be expensive.
So you grew up on this property.
Spent my summers here, yeah.
Was this a winery at that time?
No, my grandfather is a retired Army mechanic. He was motor pool guy. So he, out here was all dry farm barley. There were no grapes at all. I mean, there was a few, but very, very little. And, yeah, this is in the 70s. So there was every piece of farm implement you could think of on this property, from combines to D3s to hay balers, you name it. It was here. And he kept it running for all these guys out here.
And so your experience with this from being a little kid was always agriculture.
Yeah, and he was a green thumb guy, so there was every plant, every fruit tree you could think of on this property. He just liked growing things.
And when did you purchase the property?
About 98. So he passed away young. He was only 61, so that was 1981. And my grandmother stayed out here until 98 when she passed away. And then I called my uncles and said, hey, will you guys sell? And so they sold the property to me at that point.
And what was your intention for it at that time?
We weren't 100% sure. I talked to my wife, it's like, hey, we really should buy this. I just had a connection to the place, riding my mini bike out here when I was a kid and shooting my BB gun out here. I just loved this it's only 10 acres, a little tiny place. In comparison to the rest of the wineries out here, I guess we're tiny. And it just seemed right. My grandfather had actually planted some Gewürztraminer grapes, and there's like 30 vines, and just started smashing those. It's like, let's play with this wine thing and see what it turns out. I'll see if I can learn how to make wine, and maybe that'll be some place to plant roots down the road. Because we've been all over the United States traveling, because we knew, the Navy's not permanent, right? So we knew we needed a place to plant roots and go. And we'd been all over Wyoming, Colorado, Montana, you name it, we'd been looking. And it just kind of slipped right in and fell into place, if you will.
Was your wife from the area also?
Nah, she's Washington State as well. She was born in Monroe and actually met in high school, Lake Stevens.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
So how long did you have the property, or more importantly, how long did you start going towards the winemaking industry before you actually retired from the Navy?
About 10 years. Yeah, so 98, and I retired late 2007.
And when was your first time to actually venture into actually making wine? So from the grapes grown on your property to actually making wine.
So I started making wine in 98. Actually, that didn't turn out real well. Poured it right back in the vineyard. Actually did that for a couple of years, and then finally actually won a bronze medal at a home winemakers in Orange County, and kind of like, well, maybe we can figure this out. And then went from there. So that was like 91, 92 timeframe.
Dedicated.
I'm sorry, 2002. Yeah.
Were you actually going through any type of dedicated training, or was it all trial and error?
It was mostly trial and error, but I took some classes. UC Davis, they weren't online yet. It was all VHS tapes. That's how long ago this was, I guess. So I had the VHS tapes and plug those in and watch those at night. And it was all tested. I had to bring it to, be a sealed envelope. I'd have to bring it in and find a proctor, if you will. So I had to be like an 04 or above that they wanted in the military. So I'd sit there and take a test at work in the Navy for winemaking. Yeah.
Is it the same kind of thing though? Like anything else, you can get the schooling, but it's not until you actually start doing it hands-on that you truly learn it.
Yeah, I even talked to Hal Schmidt about it. Volatus. We all bought the same books. We had this stack of books that we bought at UC Davis. All their textbooks, and flying back and forth. So I used to go back to Maryland, where EOD school was, and the tech div is back there. And I'd take the red eye out, fly out in San Diego, turn around, fly back the next day. And I did that once a month, sometimes twice a month. And I just take those books and just highlighting and reading like crazy. And then you got to come out and put it to practical use. And it's a little different.
Now, getting actually into the farming aspect, you obviously had the background because you grew up with your grandfather growing and planting stuff. But what's that process like of actually planting the grapes? And because how long from planting to actually being able to harvest a wine grape?
Yeah, so they call it the third leaf. So basically, because you plant like April, so that's the first leaf, that growing season. So it's not quite a year, because they're basically dormant by November-ish, depends on the weather. And then the third leaf, you're going to get fruit. It's a light crop, but you'll get some fruit. And they say the sixth leaf is your mature crop.
And what's the time frame on that?
That's basically 5.5 years.
Oh, okay.
Roughly, yeah. So
your first wines were just Gewürztraminer?
Yeah, we did that. And then we planted in 2009, we planted our Petit Syrah, and then planted a lot more Gewürztraminer. So we took cuttings off of the original vines, the 30 vines that were there. And we have about half an acre of it, give or take, of that now. We do about 100, 120 cases a year of it. So it's real small production.
And is that your ultimate long-term goal, is to kind of keep it as a small
Yeah, we
family
like it,
winery?
we like it small, for sure. You have no interest in it being a big conglomerate. Like it small batch wines, stuff you can take care of, 100 to 120 barrels. You can monitor each barrel, and I mean, yesterday I had them all out. Well, I had half of them out, so I had my whole 2020 vintage out on the thing, and I was able to go through every single barrel. And when you've got 60,000 barrels, it's kind of hard to do.
You lose the ability to kind of have a hand in all of it.
Exactly, yeah. So if there's a bad barrel in a batch, you can snag it out of there and get it out before it ruins everything else. So,
did you actually have a mentor, or did you seek somebody as your kind of guiding light?
Yeah, my first guy was Tom Morgan. He had Casa de Caballos, a winery down in Templeton. He's actually my grandfather's doctor. And then we turned in really good friends. He was a hunter. I like to hunt. And I was working with another retired doctor out there in Adelaide. So in between winemaking, I'd be out hunting with those guys. But he was a great mentor. He was the one that really got me started. And he was the one that taught me a lot of the business side of it. Because there's one thing to make wine. It's the other side of this house is the business side, which is a steep learning curve, if you will.
So today, would you consider yourself a farmer or a winemaker?
Actually, both, to be honest with you. The growing takes a lot. Takes a lot of work, and you're constantly talking. And it's, another thing about the industry is everybody works together out here, and it's really nice. And I think that was part of the draw coming from the Navy, working in small 8-man teams. You come out here and, everybody works together and has each other's back. And it's all about putting Paso Robles on the map, So how do we get more people to Paso when we're all making good wine? So, and that's part of it. The growers do that. We've got the Grape Growers Association. We've got the Wine Alliance here in Paso, and everybody communicates. So that's my best friends in town here are other winemakers. So you just chat with those guys and get some guidance. You
found from the get-go, though, everybody was always pretty much welcoming?
Always, yeah. Especially here. I mean, Paso's still wide open, everybody's super friendly and gets along really well. So it's really nice.
Venturing off that, you got into charity work. Mm-hmm. And your first venture, if I'm reading it correctly, was with the Eod Foundation.
Yeah, Eod Warrior Foundation. Back then it was Wounded Eod Warrior Foundation. We dropped the wounded part off. I forgot what year that was. I think 2010, 2011, somewhere in that area. We merged with an older group called the Eod Memorial Foundation. They were started in '69 in Indian Head, Maryland, and basically they were designed around. We still have it. We have a wall with the Forest Services that are on there for all the killed in action, killed in EOD work, basically. So it was mainly taking care of that wall, and then they started a scholarship program as well back then. So families could apply for scholarships for their kids, and then very small. And it was always run by some poor lieutenant who was left behind in school for whatever reason, broke his leg or what have you, got rolled back. It's like, hey, you're in charge of the foundation, for the next 6 months. So it was never really run very well for years and years. And we finally, got a professional staff, and it's run professionally now. And they merged, and it's a great organization now. It's doing really good work. So,
did you get involved before you left the military?
Not before, no. So when I got out, the Wounded Eod Warrior Foundation had just started. I think it was in 2006 or 2007. So that was right when I was retiring. But I had always donated my CFC campaign. Always went to the Eod Memorial my entire career. Well, once I got into EOD, which was in '84. So I guess my contribution was just giving money to them every month.
So you were already connected with at least the charitable side of it,
yeah,
for a long time.
Sure. Yep.
Now you're actually on the board.
Right. Yep. I got invited last January to join the board of directors, and I promptly accepted. I've been an ambassador with them for probably close to 10 years. As soon as I retired, basically, which was 2007, I think I started as an ambassador in 2008.
And their charity events, how does that impact your ability to run your business, or do you work them together?
Work them together. We do two out here now, specifically with the winery. And, I'm going back and forth. I mean, it's a lot of work. I mean, it's, we just met yesterday. We have all these subcommittees, you have the board of directors, and then you've got the subcommittees with the grant committee, which I'm on. Then we also have the fund committee for figuring out how we're going to fundraise for the next year. And we just met yesterday, as a matter of fact. So there's a lot of time involved there, but it's all well worth it.
So what 2 events do you do with that organization each year?
Well, the 2 big ones we do here at the winery, we've got Warriors Helping Warriors, it's called. We just celebrated our 10th one this past June. And then we've started 2 years ago. I think the event started 3 years ago. It's called the Eud Dedication Ride. And it's held in 3 different states. We did Virginia this year, was down in Florida, and then the final ride was here at the winery. So we started and finished here at the winery, and we're going to focus it around Veterans Day. So whatever weekend's the closest to Veterans Day. This year it was Thursday, so we did it the following Saturday on the 13th of November.
And all of that fundraising goes back to the Eod Foundation?
All the Eod Warrior, yeah.
Now you have your own your charitable organization through your winery. That's your Eod Cellars.
Right, and that's all for Eod Warrior. Yep.
So it's still connected. Even though it's through your winery, it's still connected through Eod Warrior Foundation?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so everything that we raise with the Eod Cellars label, however we do it, and that's where Warriors Helping Warriors came from. We bottled the Eod Cellars wine, and I think it was like 10 years ago, we invited some friends over, and they're like, hey, you should charge for this. It was like, people aren't going to pay to come out here and work, come to find out, they will, so... we started, I think it was actually the first year we didn't do any fundraising with it. The second year we actually started charging, hey, 100% whatever we take at the door will go to the foundation. We'll get some beer donated. We'll get, other wines and stuff out there, and we'll bottle wine. And we had live music, and it just has exploded. So I think the first year we had like 20 some people, and now there's 280 to 300 people here.
And when do you anticipate that your next event being?
I'm pretty sure it's going to be June 4th for 2022. We're looking at the calendar, going back and forth. It's been April consistently until this year was COVID, pushed us into June. And then next year, our kids are getting married out here in April, so we're going to push it probably again to June. So, and I think it's a good time.
And somebody who comes out for that event, what can they get involved in?
All kinds of games are going on. The pizza oven's fired up. We have 2 live bands that are playing during the day. The bottling the wine. So the bottling line's set up, so everybody gets to rotate through and get on the bottling line. We have a skeet range, so we're down there.
That's what every winery should have, right?
So the joke is beer, wine, and shotguns. What could go wrong, right? So we have a good time, and usually Jim Mulhall comes up, or some other good friends that are range safety officers from the past, and they'll run the range for us down there, and yeah, it's a fantastic day.
So going back to when you were in the military, when you were ready to transition out, was your winery already in place to get going, or were you still looking at more of a process before you'd actually be producing wine?
Well, we knew we were going to do it, and the property was set. We had built the winery. The building itself had been built. We did that in 2005, so I was driving up to San Diego on the weekends and building that.
So you basically retired just so you could get a rest.
Right, exactly, yeah. That was crazy. And then, so we got here, as soon as we got here, I went to a compliance company and talked to them, and they wanted huge money to do all the paperwork to get, your federal bond and everything you have to do. So it's like, well, it's just paperwork. I just spent 28 years in the Navy. I know how to do paperwork. So we just sat down and just spent the next couple months getting all the paperwork set up, and we got our federal bond in December of 2007, and then did our first official bottling in February of 2008.
So it wasn't a long process between retirement to getting it going.
Yeah, it was like we were ready. Let's go.
So walking somebody through your same shoes, going back to 2007, if somebody's interested in going down this route, what would be the steps that you would recommend they take?
I think some of it I think I did right. Learn how to make the product. Whatever that product happens, it doesn't have to be wine. There can be a million different things you could do, I guess. But learn, what it takes to make a good product, what makes it unique, what makes it stand out. Because around here, when people say they want to start a winery, it's like, well, what do you got? It's like, well, I make a great cab. It's like, well, so does just about everybody else. You're going to have something else to get people to you. So you got to have a niche. So find that niche, and then learn the business side of it. That was, like I said, the hardest part. I was very fortunate. My wife Cindy's CPA background, so she was able to jump in and run the books. And so that was a huge deal, for sure. Because that's the crux of it right there. The feds, they want their taxes and they want the paperwork's got to be done right.
Right.
And all that stuff's got to be done right. So you got to have those key pieces in place. Otherwise, you're going to be playing catch up down the road for sure.
Is it not growing your own grapes? Obviously, you can purchase grapes from other.
And we do. Yeah, we buy majority. So we do roughly 30 to 40 tons a year, and I only grow like 10 to 12 of that. So we purchase a majority. Is
it an easy process, though, for somebody starting out to buy grapes, or?
It can be if you know somebody, I guess. But, otherwise, you're gonna have to go after a broker, find a broker who's got connections if you don't know anybody. So you're going to have to hire a professional guy to lead you down the path to get the grapes. There's a lot of growers here, but a lot of them are all contracted out. So, you call somebody like John Walter down the road, and he's got 400 acres of grapes, but he's locked in, for 5+ years at a time. So sometimes it can be hard, but then you got the small mom and pop shops, like you met Melanie up there at Boniche. She has 7 acres and she's but that makes it hard too, because she's limited. So there's only so many tons to go after. So it can be tough.
Where would be the starting point? Would the starting point be with a broker, or do you actually do the legwork of going around to multiple different wineries trying to buy grapes?
If you've got the time and energy to do that, you could definitely go around, because a broker's not going to cost you that much. I mean, he gets his commissions other ways. He's just going to find you the person, and you buy direct from that person. You're not going to get it from him per se.
And what would you say would be the biggest hurdle or something to avoid when you're talking about buying in bulk and then needing to store it? What's your work time with a grape once you've purchased it?
Well, I mean, whites are quick. Whites go real fast. You can have those in the bottle and out within 6 months. Your reds are going to go for a couple of years usually. Some of the bigger guys push it a little bit. They have fancier equipment. They can push it out a little faster. But somebody small like us, it's 2 years in the barrel, so it takes a while. So, if you think about it, if you're planting grapes, we planted in 2009. We didn't bottle our first vintage, which was 2011 vintage, in 2013 is when that, and then it had to sit for a while. So it was like pushing 2014 before we sold a bottle of wine off our vineyard. That was in 2009.
Will other wineries store your wine for you, or are you looking?
There are custom crush facilities around here, yeah. So you can go, place Paso Wine Services, for example, and contract out, and they'll do everything. I mean, they've got winemakers. You don't even have to know how to make wine. They'll make it for you, and just tell them what you're looking for.
Does that kind of take the fun out of it, though?
I think so, yeah, pretty much.
So pretty much somebody could come into this venture, not owning any land, not growing any grapes, not having any storage. They could get everything they need, make their first foray into wine, all through the use of ancillary resources.
You don't have to own anything. You can contract it all out, every bit of it.
Would that be something that somebody could keep doing indefinitely, or is that just going to become too cost prohibitive?
People do it. And there's wines out there that have no brick and mortar that, belong to the owner of that bottle, if you will. They hire everything out.
From what you've seen from new people coming into the industry, what's the biggest mistakes, or maybe mistakes that maybe you made that somebody shouldn't or try to avoid?
I think that was one of the biggest key factors that Tom Morgan taught me was don't borrow too much money. You see, I've seen several here that came in, borrowed millions, because the joke in the industry is making $1 million, you start with 5. We didn't have that. We start very small. Retired Navy. I did not have $1 million when we got here. Trust me. And
you're breaking the mystique. I thought everybody retires with $1 million.
Yeah, right. Definitely not out of the Navy unless you were really smart with real estate. Some of my buddies were, for sure. But yeah, I mean, it was don't borrow money. That was the big key factor. And you see these guys because they think that they've got the next best wine in the world, and they come in and they borrow millions, and next thing you know, their banknotes due, and they're not selling enough wine, and hasta la vista.
Now, your second grape that you started growing was the Petite Syrah.
Correct.
Did you start growing that because you saw a missing niche in the valley, or you wanted that particular grape?
Yeah, it was that simple. My wife and I both love Petite Syrah, so it was like, hey, let's plant Petite. And I was really fortunate. John Walter, he's probably one of the most knowledgeable people in Paso on wine grape growing, in my honest opinion. I said, hey, what clone and what rootstock? And he's like, oh, clone in, St. George rootstock. Got it. Boom. And best of class gold medals one year after another with that wine. So it's fantastic.
But for somebody coming into it, you mentioned earlier, somebody will say, oh, I want to do a cab. Everybody else and their grandmother is doing a cab in the valley. Mm-hmm. You got to find your niche.
You do.
So should your first venture be towards go with what you like or go with what you see is not currently available or less available?
Less available might work. The problem is that, Chardonnay and Cab are still the number one sellers in the United States, hands down. So it's, the old adage, Cab is king. So it's kind of hard to venture away from that sometimes. But you can find your niche. There's some great grapes out there. And if you can get people out here to taste it, it can take off. Aglianico, Alicante Boucher, all these weird stuff that you never see on the store shelf that people aren't going to grab, unless they know, specifically, oh, hey, I had Aglianico in Italy, 10 years ago. It's great. They got to taste it. So they got to come to the tasting room and try it. And then you can find a niche that way.
I've seen documentaries on the hard alcohol industry and how the small distilleries have slowly gone away and been bought up by the big conglomerates. Is the same thing happening in the wine industry?
Yeah, you see big guys come in. Robert Hall got bought up by a big guy. It happens quite a bit.
How do you keep that from happening? Is it just being in a position where you're not obligated to sell, or?
I think so. Unless you're tired, and it's time to move on. I think, something like this is not super marketable unless there's another, couple that's looking to get into the industry. So, we have no interest in selling anyway, but a little place like ours is not super marketable. But, if you've got a big, semi-big winery that is producing a lot, has a lot, good contracts, for lack of a better word, with their grapes, with distributors, then they become more marketable and easy to sell.
Is your family moving towards this in the sense of your children? Are they coming towards the industry?
Not yet. Not right now. My son, our son is in the Navy. He's a diver down in Panama City. He still has at least 6 to 8 years left. He just passed the 12-year mark. So he's got 8 years left down there, or in the Navy at least. He's more of a beer whiskey guy, so he has no interest in wine right now. So, but I tell him all the time, this place is going to be his heartache anyway. I don't care.
It's in the family. It's staying in the family.
Yeah, it's yours. I don't care what you do with it after I'm gone. So, yeah.
Any last little words of advice for somebody just kind of planning their transition and thinking about going towards the wine industry?
Yeah, just don't give up. Be persistent. Again, I'll reiterate, don't borrow money unless you absolutely have to. We just did it really small and kept things very, very small. We had no fancy equipment. And what equipment we did have was mostly used that I was able to get at a good price. So, and be persistent. Just persistent. Just don't give up.
Is there a basic educational program that you would steer somebody towards?
Well, if you wanted to get super into it and get it, there's several. Cal Poly has a great 4-year degree. UC Davis has one. There's several colleges. You can go get a 4-year degree in viticulture and enology.
No, I was just talking about, you mentioned earlier, like you got a stack of books that you read. And,
right.
I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but like Wine for Dummies.
There's several books out there that you can get. Cox made, I forgot the name of that book now, but that was like the first wine book that I ever read. And then there was a couple others from, Vineyard to Marketplace, and they're just easy reading, and they've got some great ideas in there and to help guide you down the right path, if you will, to help things out. So there's several just regular textbooks out there to pick up.
Will most winemakers let somebody just walk in and offer to volunteer to help to learn?
Most might, it depends on the business, if it's like a corporate owned place, not so much, because there's going to be rules and regs about, for insurance purposes, obviously, right. But some place like ours, yeah. Just come on out and we'll put you to work. Easy day.
So basically, if somebody's got the interest, maybe even just make that their first step in, just find that winery that you kind of connect with and go from there.
Exactly. And say, hey, I'd love to come help during harvest. And there's a lot of places say, we'd love to have you come on out, and they'll put you to work for sure.
And then as far as the two charitable organizations, EOD Warriors, EOD Cellars. EOD Cellars is through your website, through Tackitt Family Vineyards?
It is, yeah. And that's not actually a 501c3. You know, this EOD Cellars produced and bottled by Tackitt Family Vineyards. Portion of the proceeds go to the Eod Warrior Foundation.
And
that's set up.
The Eod Warrior Foundation, it's its own entity.
Mm-hmm.
Find that through their website. But there are events that somebody could take part in through your winery. Yeah,
and there's this many events during the year, too, that we, Polar Bear Plunge back east in Virginia, we're all over the place. The main office for EOD Warriors down in Niceville, Florida. And then, our executive director lives in Atlanta. We're all over the place. The board members are throughout the United States. We meet on Zoom, and, by regulations, we have to meet in person every once in a while. But, we're spread all over, and there's always something going on. We're working on golf tournaments, wine dinners. There's all kinds of stuff that we're trying to get going here to help raise more money.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate your time, sir.
It's fun. Absolutely.
I appreciate you watching. But before you go, if you like the video, please hit that subscribe button. Also, any comments are appreciated. Thank you.